Welcome to On the Table, a podcast about board games, card games, and tabletop war games. Welcome back to episode 63 of the On the Table Gaming Podcast, where we'll be continuing our discussion of A Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game. So this week, I'm really excited to have on Duncan Rhodes, formerly of Warhammer TV. You've probably seen his works online. It's really cool to see him doing A Song of Ice and Fire, and I was thrilled to get to sit down and talk with him about his foray into A Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game. So without further ado, Duncan, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hello, nice to be here.
You know, I'm really excited to have you on, as I feel like in a lot of ways, through your videos and the work you've done in the past on Warhammer TV, you've kind of been like the public face for the hobby. You're sort of like a wargamer ambassador for, I think you've been that way for quite some time now. And I'm just excited to like make sure that if there are people in the Song of Ice and Fire community who haven't seen your work or don't know who you are yet, that they really get connected here, because one of the cool things about A Song of Ice and Fire is we draw in like kind of a wide crowd of players. Like we have board gamers, card gamers, and, you know, your traditional war gamers. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe we could start off just by, we asked this question kind of at everyone, but, maybe you could tell us a little bit, what's your gaming background and, how long you've been gaming and kind of what perspective do you bring when you sit down to play a game?
Yeah, okay. I suppose for folks who have just been around Ice and Fire, I kind of stumbled into finding myself working for Warhammer TV and ended up doing painting stuff for them. But my gaming background really has all been about just basically having fun with these toy soldiers and just enjoying this hobby, And I'm very much kind of a narrative gamer. I like stories and backgrounds, and I like, nice models that evoke those kinds of things. And of course, with the Game of Thrones TV show, it's impossible not to have encountered this storyline. You can't really avoid it, can you? So I was aware of it, but I would obviously be doing Warhammer a lot. I'd be doing lots of historical stuff in my own time, so I'd like to, delve in that kind of thing. But I was actually at Adepticon, and I just ended up sort of. It was last year. I think some sets were being given out.
Yep.
And there were lots of demo tables of it all around, and I saw the Lannister troops, and I thought, wow, they actually look really cool. They look like real soldiers, but with a fantasy flair to it. And so that's really my kind of thing. That sort of stuff really appeals to me.
Was there a specific unit that pulled you in?
Well, it was the Halberdiers, first of all.
That was for me too. I had that same exact experience. I was like, I stocked up on a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So there's the money-making unit right there.
Yeah, man. But that look awesome. Have like a whole line of those. It's like a pike ball. Wicked. I was there working. I was doing these painting seminars and stuff all day, and I didn't really get much chance to look around the show. But in the trade hall, it was impossible to miss the big piece of artwork of the Knights of Castle Rock charging. On the front of the box.
Yeah.
Walking past the demo tables and seeing the halberdiers, halberds poking up and stuff. It just looked really cool. Really sort of appeals to me. So I did a bit of research on the internet, looked into it, and just thought to myself, why not? I like the models. That's kind of what drives me, and I'll have a go. And I went and picked a set up. I actually bought it from. It's amazing. You've been to Adepticon, right?
I actually have not. So that's on my list. I've got to get there.
Oh man, there's this store. I'm terrible. I always forget the name. So they're open 24 hours a day during the course of the show for like 4 days, and they've got all these boxes full of just bits and pieces from all various armies from all different games. And you see people there at any time of the day just rummaging through this stuff, seeing what there is there. And it was quite late. I just went down there, and they just had 2 on the shelf. So I got one, and then a guy next to me took the other one, and that was the end of their stock.
And so, were you a fan as well of the IP of the show?
Yes. Well, I'd been watching the TV series, of course. Mm-hmm. And as for the books, after picking up the game, and so my girlfriend, she's read all the books, and stopped watching the TV show as it started changing from what the books were doing. Yep. And she'd always tell me, they were so different and stuff, and kept trying to push me to read them. But I'm terrible for sitting down reading. I just end up painting stuff instead. So
well, it sounds like you've found your calling in life. I think I think you've made that work.
Oh man, I have been so lucky in life. I really have. Never take it for granted. I've been very, very lucky to end up where I am. But yeah, I got the audiobooks, and I finished the first one, Game of Thrones, and I'm into the second one now. Starting to see why people like Stannis so much.
Oh yeah, and I think we'll cue the endless debate, but the way the show handled it and where the way the book is handling it is somewhat different. So
Yeah.
besides the miniatures, then is there have you gotten a chance to play some games with Song of Ice and Fire?
I have. So I'm much more into the model making and the painting than I am gaming. But
Hmm.
I actually, so this game, I ended up meeting with some friends. We had a go of it. And I started to see, all right, I can sort of see how this kind of connects, like how the system works. And I played another game with another friend. And I were part way through and we're actually like, this is actually a really good game. This is generally is really well designed. It just felt like it all sort of clicked. Like it felt like it matched the IP in that you
Yes.
had your sideboard of the politics and the characters all did things that you thought would be appropriate to what they are like in the stories. But it also had the aspect of maneuvering your army and having all the units working together to support each other. And the outriders, because it's just the starter set that we were playing,
Hmm.
because I just painted the core set, and he was running around with the Stark Outriders, having a great time, realizing how maneuverable they were. And we're like, this is awesome! Like it's like medium light cavalry that are behaving like cavalry. This is like just what you want. And normally games can get quite clunky with that sort of thing. But yeah, it felt it kind of picked out all the things. So it had it reminded me a lot of old Warhammer in the regimental feel of it and the look of it. It felt very modern in how smooth all the units could work. It had that feel of the IP and it had the fun of the tactics deck, given the flavor of your army and the surprises that we kept pulling on each other as we were playing cards and countering each other. Yeah, everything just really sang to me. It really appealed to me, and I just kind of like started thinking, like looking more into it, and of course listening to your podcast and looking at the app, and just watching videos on YouTube actually, like Guerrilla Gaming and stuff, and just realizing that this game's very well designed, it's very well put together, and so then I was hooked. I've played a lot of games of it ever since those ones there.
Yeah, I think that's and I can tell by the way you're talking about it, and from it's weird when you have someone on that you've like seen a lot of footage of, but they've never
Mm.
met you. It's like
Mm.
I know you, but it's like but I don't know you. But when you talk about games and like the enthusiasm you have and
Mm.
that energy, and talking about kind of the narrative elements, and I think that's what I enjoy about the game so much is that
Mm. Mm.
there is a competitive community, but
Mhm.
also so much of the game kind of evokes or it has that thematic attachment where you're like, oh,
Mhm.
like this kind of feels right.
Mhm.
And so as you're playing the game and you know, you're telling that other side sort of narrative of what's going on. And it's like Cersei is grabbing the crown and influencing a unit. Sure, there's a mechanical element there, but it also kind of
Mhm.
evokes the political backstabbing that would be happening in the books or
Yeah.
in the show.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's not that those troops have just died all of a sudden. It's that no, actually, what's happened is there's been some sort of political shenanigans going on where those guys have been paid off or threatened or something, and they've just abandoned the battle line straight away, or not even turned up to the battle line.
Yeah,
And when
exactly.
you think of it in terms like that, it's like, oh, it's like I suppose like playing Magic or something like that. You can picture the sort of the story that the game events are telling pieced together, and you can see the larger picture. And yeah, it really fits with the books and the whole feel of
That's
it.
what's kind of been fun for us as a community is that it's been basically drawing in people from a lot of different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, it maybe doesn't come across quite as intimidating as some other games because the miniatures are pre-assembled.
Yes,
And
yes.
so we get a lot of people that are jumping into war games for the first time, coming from like a Magic background. They're like, "Oh, I get the card games," or like, "I want to play
Mm.
Lannisters and play more of a control sort of card tactics deck
Yes,
and
yeah.
move my
The blue
miniatures."
the blue deck army.
Right, right. And then you've got your people coming in and say like, I want to smash stuff. I want to be Starks and I want to zip around and hit people
Hmm.
with berserkers or
Hmm.
make my cool scenic bases. So it really kind of hitting that sweet spot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there's a whole host of things about this game that just come together. I think Cool Mini have done a great job with it. I really do.
And so you've been sticking to the starter set. So you've been playing mostly Starks and Lannisters. Which faction are
Hmm.
you kind of identifying more with? I've seen some painted units, but I know that might not give away who you're exactly playing.
Well, yeah, that's how I've been playing the most. So I've been going for the Lannisters, and it's because I like their models more.
Hmm.
As a person, the aesthetic of them personally appeals to me. I like the uniform regimented look to them. I think the lovely scarlets and the gold lines and stuff look really nice. And I've since found that the Lannister Guardsmen actually are amongst my favourite miniatures. They just, as I started painting them, I found actually in the core set, yeah, I really liked those. Then I got the Knights of Castle Rock as well, and I had a great time painting those. Um, And playing with them, they're not normally the kind of army I go for. I normally tend to be a much more aggressive attacking army. So Stark fits my play style more. But it's been really fun to do something different, and it's fun to have kind of the answer to everything of like, oh, you
Right.
thought you had me, but aha, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, those and the cool thing is like the game scales up. You don't lose that as you get more
Yes.
factions, but I can definitely remember some of our early games of the starter set. I ended up with the Lannister side of the starter set, and there's nothing better than those moments when they go to do their thing. And you're
Yeah.
like, counterplot. I
Yeah,
like
yeah. You're like, I passed that morale check, and there's like an
I
awkward silence, and it's like, yeah, it's time for that supremacy roll. Oh yeah.
And I saw you've also had some painted miniatures up of some of the Baratheon troops, a Baratheon warden, I think I saw.
Yeah. So obviously I've got the core set. So I've painted all the Lancers in that, painted all the Starks in that, and I've been expanding the Lannister army, so I can have the whole army fully themed as the House Lannister red stuff. The Starks are not quite decided how I'm going to expand them yet, but since all these other starter sets have been coming out, I just think there's something about a core set that's just a rounded product that has everything you need that really appeals to me. These last few years, I've found myself getting core sets for games and just painting the entire contents of it as a standalone thing.
Hmm.
So all these different army starter boxes are right at my street. So I got the Baratheon one, even though I don't especially intend to collect Baratheons, because them being heavily armored and defensive, they feel
Yeah.
similar to the Lannister style to me. So
Or that might be more of like your, like kind of like a dwarf players
yeah,
faction.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And I mean, I really like them, so I can see myself painting them. I mean, there's not been a faction in the game yet that I don't like, so I can see myself collecting all of them. But I think for my second army that I play with a lot, I want it to have a different feel to the Lannisters, entirely, really. So I
Well,
think,
that's how I ended up playing Free Folk. I was like, what is the
well, yeah,
opposite at this time? And now I've got this massive horde army where I'm like, I have a lot of miniatures.
yeah. Well, I'm not allowed to do the free yet, you see, because one of my mates, the one who was playing as Starks,
Hmm.
in those games that we've been having. In fact, we're playing this Wednesday. He's collecting free folk.
Oh, there we
So
go. So he's the north, and he's like, what's better than the north? It's like even more north. I'm gonna go
yeah.
beyond the wall.
Well, I'm surprised he picked them. I could have sworn blind that he would have waited for to come out, because he's
Hmm.
always been into, like, his wargaming dream army has been doing a Mongol horde,
Uh,
and so you can see Dothraki are going to fit
well,
perfectly
one
for
of the
that.
benefits is with a relatively inexpensive buy-in,
Oh,
you end up
yeah.
having you don't save money, you just get twice as much. So that's the danger.
That's right.
Uh,
That's
but
right.
there's still room. There's still
Yeah,
room.
there's still, but he's not collecting them yet. So I might do for my next army, like to a full commit to an army, might be either the Dothraki or the Night's Watch. I think those two are the ones that are
Yeah.
standing out to me.
Obviously, coming from Games Workshop miniatures, these are assembled miniatures, pre-assembled, and there's
Mhm.
kind of been this like age-old debate. Just kind of talking about like just the quality of the sculpts in
Mhm.
general.
Mhm.
As someone who's been spending more time with the Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures, what have been your thoughts about the sculpts?
So I think, when it comes to sculpts and quality of miniatures, I think it's difficult to rate them because it's such a subjective thing. Different things
Right.
appeal to everybody. And I've said a whole host many times to people. I think when it comes down to the actual quality of a kit, I think Warhammer miniatures are at such a immensely high level, um, that if you just want a really high quality kit to paint, then getting a Warhammer miniature is going to scratch that itch, I think. But they make Warhammer models, so if you want to collect Lannister guards, you can't buy Warhammer models like that, right? So it's
Right.
it's a different thing. I can say subjectively, I like X more than Y, no matter what the quality of the sculpts really is. So I think it's always worth remembering that sort of thing. Games Workshop don't make Romans. I think it's a thing I've said quite a few times.
Right.
So I think, when you move to these, it's a different sort of thing, because they're made. The main body is from soft plastic, so they tend
Right.
to show mold lines and things like that. So still got to remove these sorts of things. And it's slightly different in getting rid of those sorts of things. I think the style of them, though, is something I really love, because they all appear to have been designed with realistic armor in mind.
Absolutely.
So that brings them to life for me.
And I'd be interested to hear what you think. You have the starter set too, and as you get, particularly I think starting with like the Night's Watch, it looks
Mm.
like there's been kind of a little bit of like an uptick in the details on the sculpts.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. I've noticed that with some of the more recent things with the Baratheons. I
Mm.
think the quality of the sculpting has gone up. Certainly, they appear sharper. The detail appears finer. So I don't know. I don't know if this is an actual trend that Cool Mini are not doing as they're putting more into the game, but it certainly feels that way.
Yeah, I think it's one of those like things that maybe it's just like what it's perceived as, but I feel like every
Mm.
time we get a new thing, I mean, as a free folk player, we have a lot of really cool sculpts, and there's these guys, the followers of bone, that are
Mhm.
adorned with the bones of animals and other people, and looking at those like, wow, the sculpts just seem like they've come so far.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the
Yeah.
cool thing about the game too is right out of the box, you can take them out and you can play with them. There are some people who don't paint their miniatures, some people who do.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I enjoy about it is that I think with the trays, it does like evoke those older like Warhammer games, Warhammer Fantasy,
Mhm.
that I remember playing as a kid, pushing the trays around. That was really something I enjoyed. And it's
Mhm.
been fun to kind of recapture some of that feel again.
Yes.
Um, and I kind of like just taps into like a weird bit of like nostalgia, but it's also something new.
Yeah.
But it also provides a lot of opportunities for scenic basing. I don't know if you had a chance to mess around with that at all.
Well, for the trays I've done so far, I've done them kind of just to blend in with the rest of the bases. Really, I've added a
Hmm.
few rocks and like bushes and things like that. Just to make it look like sort of. It's kind of like a generic grassland theme for bases I do and for the trays because it matches the board that I've got.
Okay.
And I just tend to consistently go towards that. But I'm thinking for the different armies and doing different sorts. One day when I do free folk, I definitely want to do them snowy. But for the Night's Watch, I've just not quite decided yet. If I can have hints of that for them being a bit further north.
Yes, that's the same problem. I wanted to do every army like a different base.
Yeah,
And
but
so my Lannisters are regular grass. Then
mhm,
I did my Night's Watch as snow based,
mhm,
and my Free Folk, it's kind of like more of like an icy tundra sort of
mhm.
thing. And my Starks I haven't done yet, but now I'm like, oh, I've got to find a way. I've got to learn how to do like patchy snow or something.
Yes.
I'm kind of getting in a bind here.
Yeah, to have it as if it's like transitioning up towards the north.
Right. This might be getting beyond my skill level though.
Yeah. Oh, it's not too difficult. It's fine.
I just need some tutorials, I think, is what it is.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, wouldn't that be a good idea? Yeah. I think with because this story has so much lore to it. I mean, it's quite incredible just how much detail there is in the books. So Robert Jordan knows his stuff. Um, it's very easy to picture these models as real soldiers in real life. So I think if you read some of the books or watch TV shows and things, you can get a feel for what the model should look like. What sort of colours you should go for, base should be like, and it's exciting seeing people bring that to life in all the ones that they paint. I've often been going around the internet looking at how people paint their own models. That's been lots of fun.
And so down the line, as you're going through the books and have seen the show, are there any factions that you might be looking forward to? Maybe things that aren't in the game, whether it's,
Mm.
sort of like the Greyjoys with maybe like
Mhm.
kind of like their naval slash like raider sort of themes or
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm very interested to see how they do represent those. Yes,
Mhm.
and I think it'll be really interesting to see how they bring them to life to get that sort of lighter armored piratical theme going on. It's going to be very interesting to have that and see how they because a little thing that I think they've been doing very well in this game is giving the little sort of the emblems like the house crests and things appearing in subtle ways on things like the sword hilts of Lannister guards having a lion's head on them. Like that.
Yes.
So I wonder, with the Greyjoys, are they going to be using the Kraken as like have this like octopus style
Ah.
thing to like how they're going to work this into the armor? And I really hope they do because they've been doing everything else. So I don't see why they do it any different.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think that was one of the requirements. I think George R. R. Martin. So he sort of signs off on the miniatures.
mhm,
And when the game was being developed, I remember them talking about how his like requirement was that he envisioned a game where you've got your troops with like heraldry being a big part of it, with like a lot of
mhm,
sigils and flags. That when you look on the battlefield, it was a tapestry of these things.
mhm,
So
mhm.
having the sigils and those sorts of elements displayed, I assume that's going to be a theme going forward.
Yes. Well, I hope they. Yeah, they seem to be going like that very strongly so far.
Yeah.
And I think you get that impression as well. I mean, the first time when I finished painting the starter set with all my Lannisters, so I've got a cabinet in my home, and I put them all there, line them up, and just looking from the side, you see all the banners fluttering above them, and you've got the yellow from the Mountains men, and then you've got all the reds from the Lannisters. And I was like, this is the sort of wargaming I like. This all these banners, colours, heraldry, man. It's what I sign up for,
Well,
It's
with
exactly the kind of thing appeals to me.
units like the ones you've been showing, like the way your Mountains men are painted, I feel like that makes it enjoyable just right off the bat, having like these really nice miniatures that you're pushing around, because everyone knows when your miniatures are painted, you roll better. So that's just out there for
Yeah.
everybody.
Well, it is the great thing. So the miniatures are bigger than the general sort of 28mm figures that most folk might be used to, and the detail is actually very sharp on them. And that's what I find quite remarkable about it, is that so the main core body of them is soft plastic, but their arms are hard plastic. So the weapons are all very straight and rigid, and the detail is very sharp, especially chainmail. Don't know if you've noticed that. On the Mountains men, you can see lots of mail on the back of the legs for them in particular, and it's so finely sculpted. It's really, really nice. I just found it a pleasure painting the entire set. I really did. I flew through doing all of it.
Now, is there any particular unit that you've been feeling that you've been having fun on the battlefield with?
Oh, the Knights Castle Rock.
Oh,
Oh yes. Oh, I love that. They're great.
Yeah.
I know. See, so I've played quite a few times against. Runs a gaming shop very close to me called Boards and Swords. So hello, Ian, if you're listening. And so we've had numerous games. He's got House Stark, but he's themed it as House Tully. So he's all taken lots of House Tully. Now he hasn't got any of his knights yet, so I've still got the heavy cavalry.
Oh, so you're lucky. You're safe for now.
Just for the moment. Prepared. It's going to change. I know it is, but
oh no!
All right. And so he's got some House Stark Outriders or his cavalry for now, and the battle always starts out with a little skirmish between our two cavalry, and he almost always manages to charge me. So my early game is trying to get those knights disengaged from that fight so they can start charging. And I found the best way to do it is just to shoot into the combat crossbowmen, and it then frees them. And all of a sudden, when you see them on the charge, they're devastating. So they've them getting moving and starting to flank things has saved me in so many times, so many games now. I really like the knights. I think they're perhaps a bit too attached to keeping them alive, though.
Yeah, they're a good unit to keep alive with the Lannister supremacy and the lances. As a free folk player with no cavalry, the Knights of Castle Rock are terrifying. If I can somehow get it so that they don't get to charge, they don't get their lance bonus, not quite as bad, but I've had many a unit run down by a heavy set of well-armored knights. So,
what's your normal counter to them?
What's my normal counter? Honestly, a lot of times when I'm running that is with free folk, there's a commander Harma that'll give out movement bonuses. And so a lot of times I'm either just eating the charge and then enveloping it with a bunch of other units, or I'm looking to play a card that'll let me maneuver up when you least expect it. So you position your knights ready for their next turn move, and then I kind of leapfrog and use the tactics card to run a unit forward and then ambush you instead.
No, I see.
But it's hard to close that distance because I have to use my tactics cards and my resources where that's just built into your unit. But if I can take away your lances, that certainly helps.
Yeah, they suddenly become a bit rubbish if they get caught out.
A little pillow fisted for their cost at that point.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're basically as good as guards, I guess.
But to be honest, a lot of times I feel like when I'm playing free folk, it's usually you get to pick something, especially against Starks. They get to pick something in my list, and it's going to die because they're going to run in there, and then we all get to jump on with our swarm. So I'll see. That might be a skill thing a little bit there too, though, on my part.
Yeah. Well, maybe so. But then cavalry is like another thing. I do wonder what it'd be like. I think that'd be an interesting game to try. I don't know how well it would turn out. As soon, like once the charge has been received, you're sort of going to get bogged down, aren't you? And I guess that's when you'd swoop around, try and surround. But that does remind me, actually, a thing I'd really like to see is House Aaron and the Knights of the Vale.
Yeah.
I really wonder how this game would represent those.
That would be good. That'd be another great one. Yeah. And then, of course, one of the big ones that often comes up is, down the line, there are dragons in Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire. How will those be represented? We've seen the Targaryen tactics set now. They're not going to be, they don't seem to be tactics cards in the base deck, at least. So, are they going to be miniatures on the field? And if so, are they going to be big, or are they going to be, some sort of political NCU thing? I don't know.
I think I think those are speculating. I think there'd be models because I think it would just be too much of a shame not.
Right.
Um,
Then you can
I
just
think,
print money there, right? If you're
yeah, I
dragon
think so.
cell.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think so. I mean, I've listened to Michael Chanel doing his podcast, and he
Hmm.
often says, like his stock answer to people asking, "Will there be dragons?" If it's in the books,
Right.
it can be in the
With
game.
a
And
knowing nod, he says.
yeah. I think he'd. Well, I don't know. The man's an enigma. I think.
True words have not been
Wrapped,
spoken.
wrapped in a mystery. I think, yeah, it'd be a tragedy if they didn't have that represented in the game. I couldn't tell you like how that would actually operate in game terms and how it would be balanced, everything else. But Cool Me None have been doing a great job with that so far, so I've got no
Right.
reason to think that it would go off the rails.
Well, maybe someday you'll be in spoilers here, but the dragon attack in what, season 7,
Hmm.
where the Lannisters are all arranged and the Dothraki come down the hill. That maybe
Yeah,
get to
yeah,
use
that'd
your
be me.
halberdiers at some point.
Yeah, it's all right. I've got the knight to cast the
Nom.
flaming barding on the horses.
Uh, well, I'm super excited to see that you're getting into A Song of Ice and Fire and that you've been painting some miniatures. And I do want to just mention, back in December, at the end of December, you sent me a message on Facebook, and it was just really nice, just saying, you appreciate the podcast, and it made my day. But I didn't put two and two together. And then I was trying to get a hold of you to see if you could come on the podcast. And then I realized that you were already in my messages. And then I was like, oh my gosh, Duncan Rhodes messaged me. But the point I want to make is like, thank you so much for just reaching out and being supportive. And not everybody does that. And I don't know, it really meant a lot. So, what can we do as a community to help support you going forward?
I don't know, really. That's not really something I guess I thought about. Well, firstly, I suppose I should say you're welcome. I think so. I'd been listening to the podcast, as I've been driving around. I drive quite a lot, so I like to, listen to audiobooks and things like that. And I just enjoy podcasts because I think you're very positive in how you
Thank you.
approach it. I like how you,
Jeez.
I think I do. I really do. I think so. You always put a very approachable what's the word, not veneer, like you make it like it's very friendly, you know what I mean. It's so with games, I find with war games and painting things like that, it's bad if it becomes very cliquey and you don't get new people in. Like, new people are vital to these sorts of things. And I find your podcast is very approachable and very like nice, easy listening. So yeah, I was enjoying it. And I just, I think it's always there's so many people do these things, and I mean, like, you do this podcast because you love the game, right? You just want to support and see it grow. So I think it's always worth acknowledging these things, and like it's like a thumbs up. Someone's doing a good job. I feel like I've been very lucky to end up in the place where I am, in that people see what I post on Twitter and whatever. So I just kind of want to share, good stuff that I encounter. So I mean, as far as the community supporting me, I suppose I'd just like to see their cool toys and just see people at the time.
All right.
That's really what I like to see. And yeah, and I guess as well, if anyone does want to talk to me or ask me questions about painting these models, then I'll do my best to respond to them. I'm getting quite a lot of messages these days. I guess I'm a fellow hobbyist. I just like talking about these toys and games and things that people are having.
And what's the best way that we can see the work you're doing? Would be on Twitter or Instagram? What's the?
Well, I've got a Twitter, which I kind of view as my blog of things that I'm painting. So you'll see all kinds of games and miniatures on there, and I have an Instagram profile as well. So on Twitter, I am Two Thin Coats with an underscore between each of those words, and on Instagram, I'm just Duncan J Rhodes. So James is my middle name, right? So or you can just search for Duncan Rhodes and you'll find me. And so Instagram is going to be a bit more of a gallery of finished stuff that I've got. So you can see some of my Lannisters on there at the moment. I've not shown any of my stars.
Oh, I hadn't seen your crossbow, man. They're up there. That's wow.
Oh yeah, they've got
amazing.
Oh, thank you. I've been trying to copy the artwork. So I love the artwork on those cards. I absolutely adore it. It's amazing. And on there, they appear to have metallic red armor. So I wanted to do that. So
oh my gosh, you have gold trim and everything.
Yeah, man,
you really captured it. Oh my gosh!
If anyone wants to replicate that armor, what it was these are Citadel paints. It was Retributor armor, then it was painted over with Agrax shade. Then the red was Flesh Terror's red, which was grass paints. You just basically cut in, and you highlight it with Liberator Gold. It's just those 4 points. And that's how I've been doing all my metallic red.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
man. So I'm going to be putting so now, well, you can see actually on those accounts, I've got some nicer camera gear now, and I know somebody who's very good at taking photos, who started photos and filming things, and say no more.
Oh boy.
But yeah,
I'm excited.
yeah.
Those are fun. So I
And,
see you got the Fujifilm. I have a similar set of
mm,
cameras. The one thing I always had trouble with those is that they, if you try to do any sort of vlog style stuff, is that the
mhm,
back camera doesn't flip around fully, so you can't look at it
mm,
while you're doing it, which is,
mhm.
just get used to staring at the lens and doing it in a one take. But you
Yeah.
probably actually know more about talking to a camera than I do.
Well,
But
I've
but it's a fun. It's fun.
I got trained to do it, I guess. I didn't just sort of I blundered my way into the job, but I got taught how to do this by this fellow called Roger, who's basically a very experienced video producer, and yeah, he trained me for presenting. And yeah, I mean, like talking to those cameras, I guess luckily it's not. I don't have to worry about what you can see on them because, well, someone else is going to be doing that
Fair
for me.
enough. Fair enough. Well, I'm excited to see your content coming out, and then I'm assuming that'll be on YouTube.
I'll be putting up information on my Twitter, so
Okay.
that's where I'll be posting stuff. But I mean, it's working hard at the moment, so it won't be that long until more information comes out as to what exactly I'm getting up to.
Well, I'm excited, and so what's the scene look like near you? Have you seen much of A Song of Ice and Fire at this time?
Well, generally around the country, I've not seen it very often. It's you get a few sets turning up now and then,
Okay.
or the Free Folk starter set, but there are pockets where they actually have stocks, and very luckily, just down the road from me is Ian's shop where he has a large amount of it because he loves the game. He
And
has a
what was the name of
massive.
that shop again? It's
It's called Boards and Swords.
Boards and Swords. So that
Um,
sounds like a good, Song of Ice and Fire community spot if people want to
yeah,
to
yeah, it
jump
is.
in there.
He's running a tournament just this weekend. Actually, it's the first time I've gone to a tournament for a long, long time. I'm going to go
Oh
and
man,
join
are
in.
you going to be
Yeah,
playing?
yeah. I'm going to
Oh
try
my
out.
god,
I think it's 3 games.
what commander are you bringing? Or what lists are you thinking of, or do you want
Oh
to keep it
God.
secret? Do I have to
Oh,
too
I
much
don't mind about
pressure?
keeping it a secret. So it's going to be themed. It's going to be Lannister.
Okay.
So either it's going to be. So I've got kind of a core set of units that I've got good practice in using now. So I'm going to stick to them. So it's going to be something along the lines of the Halberdiers, 2 Guardsmen, Crossbowmen, and Knights of Castle Rock.
Okay.
My NCUs are probably going to be Tyrion and Cersei. And then for the general, that's the question. Okay, so I
Hmm.
could have Jamie, who I've used the most.
Yep.
Uh,
Okay.
I could try Tywin, who I've never used yet, but he is painted and ready. Um, or I've got the Mountain. And if I take the Mountain, I'm going to change a few things around to get a bit more House Clegane stuff going on there. But
Ooh.
yeah, I'm thinking Jamie just because I've used him most, but it might be fun to go, play the wild card and Tywin.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of those would be going well. Having gone to some tournaments recently where I tried something new out,
Mm.
uh, I think in the end it's often better to go with what you know.
Mm.
But I think the mountain can be really fun too.
Mm.
Even just throwing him in a unit of halberdiers can be pretty powerful.
Yeah,
Um, so to get his attack off on the set for charge and then the regular attack,
yeah.
but lots of
I'll,
options.
I used him last time I played against Ian. He used we were playing a Game of Thrones, and it just happened that one of the objectives right close to where the mountain was the one that when you go on it, you pick an attachment and you basically turn all these abilities off.
Uh
So of
huh.
course he did that to the mountain. Like,
Oh, then that's not as fun, is it?
So yeah, it took like 3 turns till the
You'd be
mountain
like,
actually did anything.
and you're gonna be like, all right, knights, go get that now.
Yeah. That's why he leapt forward with his cavalry so suddenly. But that was a really good game. It was very close. Yeah, but so in that store, Ian's got quite a good community of players there. There's quite a few come down to play it. Yeah, and I know there's Free Folk, House Bolton, there's Baratheon there, and there's all sorts. So it's going to be interesting to play against some different people when this tournament happens at the weekend. But yeah, it's if you want a game, Boards and Swords is a good shout to go there. If you message them, I know they're on Facebook. Ian responds pretty quickly, and I'm sure I'll be able to advise you as to when to come down for a
That's
game.
awesome, and maybe they'll get to play with the Duncan Rhodes.
Yeah, I'd rock up and
That's
have a
you
game.
get like recognized often. I'm just getting to like these sort of personal, fascinating questions I have. Sorry, I'm just like
Yeah.
what's it like being Duncan Rhodes?
Ugh. I get
No,
that a lot, man. It's So it's very odd, very odd. I don't know. I don't really pay that much attention to it, to be honest with you. I just I people encounter me all the time around the place, look at me funny and things, and sometimes will come and talk to me.
Yeah.
And it happened in strange places. The weirdest place I've been recognised was in Poland. Um, so
Is
my
that
girlfriend and I were going.
is that a diss on Poland? What do you mean?
No, no, no,
No.
no. It was completely unexpected. We were
Okay.
so
Like Poland is a pretty weird place. That's the weirdest place I've been.
well, we were in let me think. It was either Wrocław or Krakow. I can't remember which one it was, but we were on the way to. So I don't know if you know, but in Poland they have these food bars called milk bars,
Hmm.
which are kind of they're a remnant of the communist times, and they're essentially like cheap food where you just turn up and take whatever you want from the menu and stuff, and it's
Right.
like it's very simple meals and things. And so we we're going to one of those for breakfast, and we had to cross over the road near a tram stop, and as we were just walking to the tram stop, this guy gets off the tram, bumps into me, and then double takes. And he'd just been on the tram reading his Necron Codex, heading to college, and then he walks off and he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Hello." We had a
Yeah, I
nice
mean,
chat.
I could.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just funny because I feel like, I used to play a lot of Warhammer games, and there was a period where it kind of drifted away,
Hmm.
ended up in A Song of Ice and Fire. But I feel like
Hmm.
in a lot of ways, you've been sort of the face of Warhammer, and just being a very visible person out there. So
Yeah, well, unintentionally.
unintentionally.
That wasn't really the goal. I mean, the whole point of the tutorial work was to try and break down barriers into painting these models,
Right.
so that
And
people could
expand the
see
hobby. I think
these.
that's
Yeah,
amazing, making it
yeah,
accessible.
exactly. Yeah, make people have the confidence to do it, because I mean, anyone can learn how to use miniatures. Like absolutely anyone can paint them, and I think it can be a barrier when you see these things and like you see them in the cabinet and they look amazing, and there's no way I could possibly do that. To me, that's what I used to think. And if people show you what to do, you realize actually it's just a certain set of skills that if you practice them enough, you can do anything. So those videos were all based upon that kind of idea of breaking down the barriers and people achieve the results that they want.
Oh, they're
Um,
so
so
helpful. I
yeah,
mean,
well, that's great,
I
man.
I
I'm really glad.
I remember having, like, what did I have? It was like there's like an old Warhammer painting, like the books. It was like, what was it?
Mm,
McVeigh. But it's like these
yes.
old,
Yeah.
you're like flipping through and it's like picture one, picture two, picture three, and you're like, how did he,
Yes.
what? And have you just be able to be like, oh, here's how you do it, and it's like, oh,
Well,
it's
I joined
totally.
the. Sorry, I joined the studio at a time very much looking back at older guides and going, this when it jumps to the last stage, it's like it's really hard to understand what's going on there.
Right.
So we made a very conscious effort to be honest about everything. Even the model looks really messy partway through. That's how it
It's
looks,
like
and that's okay.
it's like a Penn and Teller, like demystifying magic or something. We're like, there are no
Yes.
tricks. It's this, and it's like, oh wow.
Oh, there aren't, and even the way I painted all the same sort of techniques as you'll see in the painting videos that I did for Warhammer TV. There's no great grand trick to it. It's just a sort of like a methodical approach to the order of putting the colours in is perhaps the trickiest bit. Um, and so all the stuff that came out as a side effect of all that was completely unexpected and unintentional, and I've found it very odd and have mostly hidden from it over the years. But really, I'm just glad that I've helped people enjoy the hobby. That's really all I wanted to do, and I think I've been very lucky that the community embraced me in such a way.
Yeah.
And so, if anyone ever does encounter me, say hello. But I always encourage them. Please don't be scared. Please do.
But just remember, he's a Lannister player. Is that?
I know, right? That's right. And I'll counterplot you at the perfect moment.
Oh, I see. That's okay. That's not so bad. My wife is hilarious because she'll, she's really into she read the book. She liked the show. She's, somewhat into the game.
Mhm.
She finds the tactics cards, she feels like that's cheating or something. She's like, when I did all this stuff and you can do what? But she'll always tease when she finds out like someone's like a House Bolton player or something. She'll be like,
Oh
the
yeah.
Boltons, like, well, what's wrong with that person? There's sort of the stigmas attached to each house, but Lannisters
Yeah.
are okay. Fair
It's like,
enough.
oh, you're that kind of person, are you? You're a Lannister, like ruining everyone's fun, do you?
Like, oh no. Uh,
I suppose I should say, if you want to see what I'm getting up to, follow me on Twitter or Instagram, and that's really the first place that you'll see what it is I'm doing. I am working on stuff at the moment, and I think it's very exciting. I hope people like it, and it won't be that long until the information gets out. Yeah,
Excellent. All right.
thank you.
Well, I'm excited to hear about the scene continuing to grow, and I think the miniatures that you've been painting have looked phenomenal. I'm honestly, I can't wait to see the next thing you come up with, and I hope you have a lot of luck at this tournament coming up, and have a lot
Oh,
of
thank
fun.
you.
Um, and I just can't wait to see what else is coming down the line from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And in the meantime, I hope you get your miniatures on the table.